Okay, so all metals expand when heated. Is the conclusion general or particular, and why? If you think it's general, what type of generalization is that? And therefore, how likely is it to be true compared to? How likely is it to be true compared to the other one? So Thelma, go ahead. I've asked a 3-in-1 question.
Yeah.
Is it general?
I think it should be general. And it's a lot like generalization.
Very good. So that conclusion is a law like one. The law like one because it has an infinite reference class. All metals expand when heated. It's an infinite reference class. So if we had that as an inductive argument that we were making, if we're trying to make an inductive argument or create an inductive argument, this reasoning is very easy to falsify. You can easily make it false because of the nature of the conclusion we are drawing. The conclusion is a hypothetical statement, which is what? Infinite, a universal generalization. And therefore, just one counterfactual can make it false. If that is the case, then this is easier to falsify. That conclusion you see on your screen, it's easier to falsify than if I had said this. Now I'm sure these things make sense to you. If I had drawn the conclusion below based on the premises up here, this conclusion I've drawn here would be most likely true, not necessarily true, most likely true, compared to this, which is not so likely true. Why? Because of the way you can easily make this conclusion false. So we've gone through all of that. Great. This screen is familiar to you as well. You should be able to tell me why confirmation is not proof. If I were to ask you to do that in the exam or wherever, then you should be able to tell us why. If I asked you to compare an enumerative induction with a statistical hypothesis as a conclusion versus one with a universal hypothesis as a conclusion, compare them and give maybe 2, 3 different distinctions between the two, you should be able to do that as well. Those are all examinable questions for the unit. That's what I'm drawing your attention to. So we've seen that also. Then we saw verifiable statement versus confirmable statement. When we say a statement is verifiable and when we say it is confirmable and all that, you saw them in your eye as well. Directly testable, indirectly testable, or focusing on the reference class. Where you have a general reference class, then you know that it is confirmable, has a good empirical content, higher predictive power, and therefore easier to be false, that's falsifiable, than if it is statistical. And statistical will also be more of all that than a particular statement. I'm sharing my screen alongside, so you would want to follow. So particular statements are evidential, premise, observation statement, data, etc. They are directly testable. We compare and contrast that with what? Hypothetical statements like generalizations, universal statement, etc. You've seen all these, so I'm just walking you through because it's been 2 weeks, I think. Last week we had to, not 2 weeks because we met in the morning to refresh our memories on these ones before you are in there. So it's not that long. Okay. So there's a reason why the expressions you see on the screen now are described as some are verifiable and some are confirmable. And I think that you're able to do that now. And we got to this part where we see that statistical hypotheses are easier to confirm, therefore less valuable to the empirical scientists compared to the law-like hypothesis. And that was the point I was making with the earlier, enumerative induction here. The hypothesis drawn here, so most women are cheat based on these several enumerated instances. It's easier to confirm than the one that is up here, which is what? Easier to false if I showed you that. But that one can easily made false. All right. So we can now move on unless you have any questions. Any questions, please? Yes, Thelma. Your hand is up. I don't know if it's a question. Go ahead. If it's not a question, then you may lower your hand.
Thank
you. So we continue. And so now, easier to falsify. See the screen now. Degrees of falsifiability, all these. I want to believe that you know them. Why a statement is described as pseudoscientific, tautologous, they're all there. And predictive power, empirical content, valuability, the scientist. These are all, I suppose, accessible to you. Any questions? You did all this. Any questions, please? This is typically your critical thinking. Your critical thinking has to focus on these. So I'm glad to take you through them. Waiting patiently if you have any questions. If not, then we'll move on to our agenda for the day. Irabna,
I have a question.
Go ahead, Irabna.
Yes. Please, what is predictive power?
Anybody wants to help Irabna with that? Predictive power. Did we discuss that? Can play the video. The ability to predict. If you know so much, you have higher empirical content, then it can inspire your ability to predict. If I know something about all water, all fish, or better still, all fishes, if that helps you. If I know something about all fishes, that all fishes live in water, then I can predict what happens when you take the fish out of water for even 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I can predict, I can take, oh, don't take the fish out of the water, maybe my aquarium or something. So don't, oh, no, don't take the fish out, because I'm able to predict what will happen. I have a higher predictive power. If I know about all fish, I can predict what will happen if you took that fish out of water. I know that all fish survive only in water, or fish cannot survive out of water for 10 minutes, something like that. That is a generalization. That is universal or law-like in nature. I know that I'm able to I have a higher power of prediction than if I knew about just 80%, say, of fish. It is still general, but 80% of fish is not the same as all fish. Okay, so the same old story about empirical content, reference class is what we are talking about. If I know so much, in other words, if the statement I have is a universal generalization, the law-like one, then it gives me a higher power of prediction. I can predict what will happen. If you were stepping out of your car it has rained today. Let's say the place is flooded. There's water all over the place. You're safe in your car. But then it stops raining, so you want to step out and enter the room. But you waddle through the water a little before you get into the room. But I'm in my room upstairs, and I see that the electricity cable wire has come off and dropped into the water. I know something about all water, that water is a good conductor of electricity. Water of all kinds will conduct electricity. Okay. I know that if I know all water conduct in my room upstairs, I will shout at the sister who is coming out of the car, trying to step into the flooded water, the pool of water there. I'll shout, sit down, don't come out, don't come out, don't come out. This ability I have to predict is not by divine inspiration. It's just because I know about all water and how water behaves in the presence of electricity, for example. So I'm able to predict. A higher predictive power is given to the person if she knows so much. So if I'm dealing with a universal generalization, the scientists give us hypothetical statements that are universal, they give us a higher predictive power than if we have statistical generalization. And statistical generalizations are also higher in predictive power than verifiable statements or particular statements in that order. So that is what we mean. It's all about the reference class, what the information we have is referencing. If it is referencing all women are cheats. If your mother or father advises you, say, hey, Charlie, women they are cheats, or women like money. To my son, when you go to school, watch. If you are falling in love with someone, check. That's for women like money. Women like it's a universal generalization. If you have that content, your ability to predict is high. Any X that comes by, passes by, that is a woman, falls into that attribute that has been given. And so you're able to predict, is she a woman? Oh, that's why. But if I said most women like money, then you may have women around you who don't belong to that sex. So you are not able to say that, oh, then now that I've seen a woman, I can conclude that she too she likes money. That information said most, didn't say all. So these women around you may be part of the few. In other words, if I didn't say all are universal generalization, then your power of prediction is limited a little. Okay. But if I said most are, it doesn't say as much as if I had said all are. However, it says more than if I said that woman likes money. That woman is specific. So I'm dealing with only that woman. It doesn't inform you about the several other women in the world. So your ability to predict is limited. Okay. So that's why the screen before this one said, let me go back to that. Hey, what am I saying? I have so many for this. All right. So you see on the screen, Irabna, you see empirical content, degrees of falsifiability and predictive power. If you can see my screen, then read what you see, please. Irabna.
The more,
Yeah.
yes, please. Empirical content, degrees of falsifiability, and predictive power. The more general a statement is, the more empirical content it has.
Do you understand
The
that one? Do you understand that one,
Yes,
Irabna?
please.
Okay. So if the statement is general, yes, if it is general, then it will have more empirical content. It will be telling you more about the world. Okay, the next statement.
Yes. The more empirical content a statement has, the higher its predictive power.
Very good. So if the statement has more empirical content, then it will give you the power to predict. That's what I just explained. If you know something about all women and how they get pregnant and deliver in 9 months, then when your sister gets pregnant and she wants to go and do her PhD, you can tell her, oh, don't worry, but by 9 months, the baby will come. We'll take care of the baby so that you can go to your school. Why are you saying by 9 months? Because of what you know about all women. You know that it could turn out that this child will come earlier or later, but then there is a general hypothetical frame within which we are working. You are able to predict. That's why it's a prediction. It could fail. We said all that. But if it is a universal generalization, then it gives you that power of prediction. That's why it is valuable to the scientist who wants us to be able to live in a world that we didn't create. We have to know our way around. And that is the rationale. Please finish it.
Yes, please. The more predictive power a statement has, the easier it is to falsify.
Yeah,
The
explain
easier
that
it
also.
is. Yes, please. The easier it is to falsify a statement, the more valuable it is to the scientist.
Okay, so I hope that it is clearer now. That was the point we were making earlier. Okay.
Yes,
Thanks
please.
very much.
Thank you.
Most welcome. Let's take another question if there is. If not, then we can roll and make sure I've spent some good time on that slide, this set of slides, because it captures a lot of the things you do in your discipline. This one. If it is so clear, then we are good to go to the next equally substantive unit. It's 8. Argument based on sampling. An analogy. I'll walk you through it quickly. Right. How many of you have looked at the unit 8 at all? Like I've just argument based on sampling. Yes. viewed it a little, not plenty. How many of you have done that? Keep your hand up if you have. I'll give you a group work that you will do and submit. So I hope you will take advantage of it. Okay, Unit 8. Can I have someone read what they see? Anyone at all? Keep your hand up, I'll call you. Yeah. Rafik, go ahead.
Okay, madam.
Yes, sir.
Inductive argument based on sampling.
Yes, sir.
An argument based on sampling is another type of inductive argument.
I will ask you that. I will ask you that. So please keep it today in your head once and for all. I think you were expecting those in your eye. It's so universal. Go on.
An argument based on sampling is another type of inductive argument, apart from analogy, enumerative induction, and causal argument.
Okay, so this is causal. This is causal from the word cause. Causal argument. Yeah.
Since the generalization, example, Ghanaians are hospitable, cannot be directly tested. We test it indirectly through a subset of its infinite reference class. So we test the sample that is a subset of Ghanaians, that is the population, to determine what the degree or probability of truth is for this statement. Such an argument, which depends on the sample, is therefore not foolproof, since what is true of the sample may not be true of the whole population. Thus, arguments based on sampling are inductive, not certain, regardless of the quality of the sample. Sorry.
Very good. This is an important slide that you cannot gloss over before we delve into the main content. Regardless of the quality of the sample, regardless of how you treat it, you make sure that it is representative, unbiased, all the qualities we are going to go through. Note that you can do all of that. The reasoning will still be inductive, and you know induction. So it will never be a certainty. Okay, you have to get that now, because when I ask you questions or when you are reasoning, there's a tendency to think that because of the nature of the sample size and the whatever that I did and whatever I made sure that I tested, I retested, I tested it on animals, there was a collaboration, it's because that this, you know, the proximity, you do everything, you say because of that, we are so certain. The point is, if it is an argument based on sampling from the onset, it is already inductive, and we know what inductive arguments are. We are inducing our conclusions onto the premises. We are not drawing it out of the premises. So it is possible for all our premises to be correct, valid, true, and yet the conclusion drawn being false. So if you get that, then you will see that what we are going to learn is just how to increase the degree of probability, like Rafik read, the degree of probability of the truth of that finding, that finding that we have. That's what we are going to do. Okay. We don't care how much quality you ensure with the process of reasoning by sampling. The starting point itself creates a problem. You sample out a few, make some findings about the few, and then you want it to represent the whole population. Okay, so it is the subset you are dealing with. And if you are dealing with a subset, then you find something that is true of the subset and you want to impose it onto the whole set. That is where the problem is. We'll have a challenge. It could be that it is true of the subset and yet not true of the whole set. All right, thank you. I think if you're able to, then continue. If not, these slides are quite loaded because I wanted to put so much in a little space so you don't have many slides to go through. So it ended up being just about 15 slides, but we'll walk through them. They are not very technical, they are easily accessible. Go ahead, sir.
Qualities of a good sample. 1. Sufficiency in size. 2. Representative or unbiased in spread.
Very good.
1. Sufficiency in size. This depends on subject matter in question. Humans are not like metals, where what is true of two metals can represent what is true of almost all metals. If 20 Legon students interviewed support X, it might not be true of the over 4,500 student body. Note, potentially, Legon students include past, present, and future Legon students. 2. Representativeness, unbiased in spread. In our example above, even if your sample or evidence is more than half the current population, it will be criticized as biased and therefore not representative. If you interviewed only males or females, the rich or the poor, adult students or younger students, non-residents or residents, etc., you should cover the different essential aspects or features of the population.
Very good and well read. Now it's a straightforward content. So I would want any one of you to comment on what you make of the slide, on commentary responses. What is the requirement that we are saying a good sample should have in order to at least increase the probability of truth that you draw about a hypothesis? Yes, Thelma.
Madam, please, looking from what you read, the quality of a good sample, it says that it should be sufficient in number. That means to be maybe, from what I understood, like half or more than half of the number. And for the representativeness, it should include every aspect of the individuals in the sample. That's what I mean.
Thank you so much. Now, just to add, sometimes you may not need half the number because of what you are dealing with. Like we were testing metals, a little tiny drop of it, there's a metal on your table. You don't need to cut the metal into two to test that because of the consistency in the makeup of the object called the metal. You see, like the blood droplets that is taken to the lab. We don't need to pull half the quantity of blood in our system before we can run a test to find out whether a person is physically, a patient or not. You see that? You just need a drop, and a small sample can speak for the whole. But if you are doing social science, so that's the point we make there. If you are doing politics, for example, you're interviewing people, you're sending out questionnaires to find out how people are reacting to the person. You want to be minded not to sample out a biased subset of the population. The bias here could be in different and various forms. For example, that's why I use the example up there for a typically social science kind of research. You want to find out if Legon students support the thing about patching. Patching is people, what did I say? If 20 Legon students interview support X, patching, for example, or they say, oh, we like online teaching. Legon has thousands of students. If you really want to make a conclusion that affects Legon students, if you want to say Legon students say they prefer the online teaching to in-person, the strength of your hypothetical statement depends on the nature of the sample size, the nature of the sample that you dealt with. First of all is the size, which Thelma helped us elaborate on, the size. If they are metals we are testing, we don't need half the quantity. If it is our blood drops, I've said that, I'm repeating it, you don't need so many. But if you want to know whether the COVID vaccine is working for human beings, and your sample size. So we are moving from the sufficiency in size. Now we want to move on to the second part. It's not representative. Representative means the spread, not merely the quantity, which we are hoping should be more than half for certain discipline. We can have a very sufficient sample size, but you would see that it is so biased, and here comes an explanation of bias. It could be that you just interview the elite of the society. It could be that the people you are testing are all white, Caucasian. It could be that they are all from a poor background, so they already are susceptible to something. It could be that they are genetic makeup already is susceptible to something, or rather is more immune to something. So if you are not careful, you will bring a vaccine or a cure or an injection that was working so well per your research. But the problem is with your sample. The sample you used was all youthful folks. You tested it on youth, young men and women, agile and active, sporty. But apparently the same thing wouldn't work for elderly folks who are mostly domiciled, seated, or younger children or babies who don't move around all the time. So if you come out with that same medicine and we spread it out, then before we find out, we are killing the elderly folks instead of helping them because of the kind of sample we engage. It is very important to have a sample that represents. So if you are going to make your findings represent a whole population, then know that, for our example, the population has males and females, rich and poor. If you ask the very rich person who is coming to Legon, that do you endorse patching? Patching is where the two people can share a bed. That small tiny student bed. It is not legal now, so because of that, there isn't much space for a lot of students. So if patching were there, we could double the size of those that we keep in residency here. If you ask a rich person who is well endowed, able to even get himself a hostel, maybe you say, "Oh, I don't care whether patching is on or not. I mean, I don't sleep on those their time beds." So imagine your sample size is 20,000 students. That's a good sample size. Not half of Legon students, considering our online distance students, other campuses that are affiliated to us. But if let's say you are able to interview 20,000, how many researchers do that? You see, so they will tell you are in a comfortable league. I keep referencing that. And before long, you are off the seat. But suppose they do that. So they have a good sample size, but it is not representative. All the people they interviewed are cratchy, modern rather. They are not asking the poor, they are not asking the elderly folks that are in school now and are in residency. They want to learn, but she's a mother. Before long, she'll be treating her roommate as if she's at home. But university is not your hall. You could have someone who is your daughter, and yet she's in level 400 and you are in level 100. And she's using the inner room. She's entitled, and you are the main room there with the others. And you may wake up, you haven't swept the room. Everybody look at you, excuse me, this is not your home, woman. So that woman may say patching shouldn't be allowed because she feels she's an adult. She's entitled to a bed. The rich may say no, but the poor may say we should allow it so that we will share the cost. And so if you don't get all these different aspects, if you ask the Commonwealth person, the gentleman at the Mills ward, they sometimes have a room meant for 4 people. There might be 20 people there. I mean, you'll be sleeping, your friend will say, it's okay, wake up, it's my time to sleep. What fathers are brothers, they share what they have without it. Women don't share, generally speaking. Her teddy bear will take one half of the bed, whatever makeup kit will take the other half, and then so this patching thing, if you are just interviewing ladies of a certain class, before long you come and say Legon students do not want patching. Meanwhile, it was because of your biased K sample. It is important to have moved from science as in natural science. I've gone to social science, but you can take it to all aspects of your research. You have to have a representative sample size. I hope you got that. Okay, let's get it. Someone else read. Thank you, Rafid. Someone else read for me. You may want to keep your hand up. Calvin, go ahead. Thank you very much.
Relevance. The researcher, okay, no, qualities of relevance from this. The researcher must ensure that the members in the sample or evidence are actually members of the population mentioned in the hypothesis or the generalization. So you should not interview lecturers.
Oh, we are losing you a little, Calvin. Move around and let's see if it will be stable. But it's an
Hello.
important point. Yeah, it's better now. Go ahead. Go ahead, Calvin. Can hear you now. Okay, so I was just saying that it was an important point Calvin was reading for us before we lost him. Yeah, the relevance of the sample to the population that you want to draw a conclusion about. How relevant is the sample you have to the population? You want to say that women like, okay, let me give you another example. You want to, still on our patching thing, you want to say that Legon students like patching. But when we check the sample that you use, those that you went to interview or those that you tested, the sample included drivers on campus, traders that sell here, cleaners that work for the students, even lecturers that teach them. Meanwhile, your conclusion is Legon students. But if you want to talk about Legon students, why is your sample really about? And that most of our research that, okay, well, not most, some researchers do that. So they have analysis and the conclusions they draw, which already wouldn't be certain anyway. But at least should be highly probable. I mean, if you project that, oh, based on the sampling that I've done and the interviews I've conducted, this year's politics or the vaccine will be maybe 50%, 80% efficacious, issue, even if it doesn't get to the 80%, I mean, 60, 70, something. Some people, 50%, 80%, the vaccine can is killing everyone. I'm just giving you an example. Why? Because of the sample. What the sample perhaps lacked was what? Relevance. You are dealing with information that didn't have any direct connection to the population that you want to draw a conclusion about. And so you have interviewed people, they are all on campus, and a lot of them, and they are telling you things, and you are saying, really? Oh, I'm telling you, my students come and they are sometimes late. I think that they prefer having to patch a little discomfort for a while, and then they will get their grades and they'll be out of the place. So I think that Legon student, and the person you are talking to now is a lecturer. Go and ask Legon students. If the person is non-resident, the pain of being non-resident, having to come in all the time and go home, come late, your lecture is closing at 7:30, she's now going to jump at the junction, go look for a house, a car, the risk involved. The next morning has to travel through this heavy traffic, miss morning lectures, and that pain can make him say, patching is the best option. But what about the one who has waited until now it is his or her turn to get? So you have to have that spread. And then when you come in and you are picking your sample, it has to be people that you want to talk about, not people connected to them. So no husbands of wives who are in labor. Don't go and ask husbands of wives who are in labor and say, how does your wife behave? And then come and draw conclusions that pregnant women say that when the people you interviewed were not pregnant women, but who? The people around them. Then when you finish, say the people around pregnant women say, then so that your sample will be what? Relevant to the population and therefore the hypothesis you draw. So relevance has to do with actuality of the sample, whether the sample you are dealing with is really connected to what? The whole that you want to draw a conclusion. Calvin, please finish for me. I'll ask you to explain. List any qualities that will improve the probability that with illustration, maybe for 10 marks, like we did with the high, and you should be able to do that easily. Please continue.
Okay. Completeness. Your sample or evidence must not exclude crucial information in the analysis or presentation of test results. Example, 90% of women observed insulted their husbands. Therefore, women are mostly insolent to their husbands. Now, this hypothesis will be so weakened if it turns out the research was conducted at labor ward as the women went through birth pangs.
I don't know if you get the drift of my example, but look at the conclusion the person wants to do. We are explaining the quality of what? Completeness. That one has to do with information that is relevant to the analysis. So you have a premise or you have a sample size that you have worked with. Make sure it's sufficient in size. Okay, you make sure it's representative, it has a good spread, covers all the various aspects of the population. Then you have given us a subset really of the population. So it is relevant. The sample is relevant to the population question. But then it turns out you leave out a very important information about the sample, which can have dire effect, negative effect on the hypothesis you've drawn. Sometimes positive, it will impact it positively or negatively. If you leave out that information, we say you can critique your thing, your sample as being incomplete. So this example is supposed to show that. Here is a hypothetical statement, statistical one, of course, drawn after enumeration, the summary report. So it says 90% of the women observed insulted their husband. That's the summary. If you recall what we did in the previous slide, after all the several instances, it is summarized first and then the hypothetical conclusion is drawn. So this is a summary report of a research done. 90% of the women observed insulted their husbands. So the person wants to conclude, therefore, and there comes the conclusion, look, women are mostly insolent to their husbands. This is a generalization, a universal generalization. Women are most of the time insolent to their husband. What is your sample size? You say 90% of the women observe what insulted their husband. Now, if it turns out that it was not just women that were observed, but it was women in labor going through the pangs, the pains of labor. I mean, look at the things people say when they are in labor. Do they even mean it? Are they even thinking right? So if someone else say objection, I think that we have to hold on. This finding, this research was conducted at labor ward 2. See how weak, how it will weaken the conclusion you draw immediately. Everybody will say, oh, now you too, this is the reason why you've called us to United Nations to come and reverse Beijing conference. The women's conference at Beijing. And they say, you shouldn't have called us here. Bed party. I mean, the man wants you to even slap him when you are in labor. Because he's feeling for you. He knows what you are going through. Doctor, I mean, someone who has just lost a relative. Look at how they handle the physician sometimes. The one who has been there, oh, doctor, God bless you. Thank you for the way you have taken care of this man, whatever relative is. God will bless you. So, because he's the one handling the patient now. Until the day the person passes, the doctor has to come and announce it. When they are coming, they have to be wearing bulletproof and blowproof if there's any dress like that. Because as soon as they announce it, say, doctor, doctor. And they hook this doctor by the neck and shake him as if he did it. But the doctors, like you yourselves in the making, understand that it is not because the client or the relative of that dead person doesn't respect the doctor. No. It is an emotion the person is going through. It's an important information that if left out will make our hypothetical statement weakened when someone else points it out, it will spoil our analysis. Why? Because when people are, women are in labor, they say it is Kofi Papa, God will punish you. God will punish you for this pain. God will punish you. My mommy, you see everything. But as soon as the baby comes out, you are calm. If you go and conduct such a research at a time that people are throwing their, especially an African woman who expresses a pain that mostly speaking, and then you gather it, and then you don't put that in your conclusion. When you are drawing the hypothesis, that's the problem. You don't put it there. You are drawing the conclusion as if it is just women who are living in luxury and nothing has happened, and they are just being, they are insulting. Then you draw that conclusion. We will say, we'll critique your analysis as what? Your sample as what? Incomplete. All right. This one we will have to look at your textbook. We'll have to look at your textbook to do it. But I suppose that you'll be using your phone now. So that is the project work, the group work I'll let you go and do in anticipation of next week's class. But it is on my page, my unit 8, activity 3.1. You have it on your PDF. I'll read it out to you, then you can go and engage it. Activity 3.1 in unit 8. You can look at it later. We work in groups and submit it. We'll talk about the groups, the grouping shortly. I don't want groups that are decided. I'll do it randomly so that people don't. Yeah, activity 3.1 is on my page 234. And it says this. If you can make a note of it, it will help. If not, just listen to me. It is talking about changes in the sample and how it can weaken or strengthen the probability, that is the degree of truth of the hypothesis. Not that it can prove its certainty, no. Now, judging evidence, strengthening and weakening an inductive hypothesis. Consider the following enumerative inductive argument based on sampling. All of you may want to write that down in your notepad. All of the 5,000 swans. A swan is a type of bird. I'm sure you know that. All of the 5,000 swans observed in North America and Europe have been white feathered. They have white feathers. All the 5,000 we have observed in where North America and Europe, 2 continents out of the 6, I think, have been white feathered, and no non-white feathered swans were observed. Not only did we observe the white feathered birds, 5,000 of them, in North America and in Europe, but we didn't also observe a non-white feathered swan. In other words, we didn't see any other swan with another color. Maybe the whites were 5,000, but perhaps we saw some yellows that were 1,000 and maybe some blacks that were 2. No, not at all. This one, we didn't see any non-white feathered swan. That's the evidence. That's the sample. Okay. Then the conclusion drawn from that is what? All swans are white. Why is the person saying all swans are white? Well, the person conducts a research, samples out a few. All of the 5,000 swans observed in North America and Europe have been white. And no non-white feathered swans were observed. Therefore, we conclude that swans are white. And that is the hypothesis. And that is the conclusion drawn. There comes my question. We are trying to see how a change in the sample could either weaken or strengthen the hypothesis drawn. That's all. But you will do that work for me. We'll work through it together. And then you do that work. If we finish all of this in class, then I'll give you another one, still on this one. Okay, this hypothesis was sustained by ornithologists in Europe until the mid-1800s, when European visits to Australia were documented by foreign scientific expeditions. and black-bearded swans were first observed by European ornithologists. That is someone who studies birds. Now, this is just some background information for you. Now, the question says this. Remember our evidence, 5,000 swans observed in North America and Europe. Therefore, we conclude all swans are white. Consider whether the confirmation of the hypothesis would be strengthened, weakened, or unaffected if the sample were modified in the way suggested by items A to E. Take into consideration, where applicable, the significance of background information. Okay? So for each of the changes A to F, decide if the additional information about the evidence would A, there comes the options. A, would it strengthen the hypothesis? B, would it weaken the hypothesis? C, would it have no effect on the strength of the hypothesis? So A, would it strengthen it? B, would it weaken it? Or C, it will have no effect. Original sample, because you are not looking, I suspect you are not looking at something. I want to repeat it. All of the 5,000 swans observed in North America and Europe have been white-feathered, and no non-white-feathered swans were observed. Therefore, all swans are white. Now, A, there comes the first question. And I'll ask and I'll reward the effort. Suppose 10,000 white-feathered and no other colored swans were observed. Suppose there were 10,000 that were observed and not the original 5,000. Would it strengthen the hypothesis, weaken it, or it will have no effect? Anybody? I have my mark sheet here. I'm done with your IED. Generally okay. Quick. I saw Rafik's hand first, but I'm giving alternative options. So,
Is that
all right,
question again?
Rafik. Oh, Rafik, I'm not going to give the question again. I've given the preamble. Now the first question is: suppose 10,000 white-feathered and no other colored swans were observed. Will it strengthen it, weaken it, or it will have no effect? That's the question.
Now I think there's a lot. Okay, I think it would weaken
It will do what, sir? Others have the answer. I don't want. It will do what?
It will weaken it.
Thank you very much for the response. Any other person who will discuss? Kamte. Kamte, you are muted.
Madam, I think you have no effect.
Okay, I've heard you. I still see Kelvin's hand. Kelvin, go ahead.
Yeah, ma'am, I feel it will also have no effect on the.
Oh, I want an alternative hand. So if you agreed with someone, then okay. So we've had a response that says originally our research dealt with 5,000 swans. We observed them in North America and Europe, and they were all white. And so we concluded that all swans are white. Now, if it were to be the case that we didn't only see 5,000 swans, actually, but we really found and researched on 10,000 swans, would it strengthen our hypothesis or it will weaken it? Your friends say, one says it will weaken it, another person says it will have no effect. Do we have any other alternative answer? Yes, Prince.
Yeah, it will weaken it.
Oh, that's not alternative. Someone has already said alternative answer. Alternate weaken. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Do. But we were originally dealing with 5,000. If it turns out that it wasn't even 5,000, it was actually 10,000 birds that we observed, haven't we strengthened our argument? We have increased the size of the sample. It means that we even found more birds and they were all white. So we have good reason, we have increased the probability, the chances that all swans are white has been increased, because we were originally dealing with 5,000. Then they went to do more research and found an extra 5,000, and all those extra 5,000 were all white. You see, that's the thinking. So the sample size has increased. It is not even 5,000. If we adjusted the sample such that it turns out that, oh, it was rather 10,000 white-feathered birds that were observed, swans, then we have increased the probability. Why? Because the size of the sample has increased. So we went after 5,000, which were all white. We were not sure, maybe we are not right. After all, maybe when we go, we'll find some black swans. So we went again. And we kept searching and searching and searching, one after the other, and 5,000 extra came to add to our original 5,000. All those birds we observed with our cameras and our, National Geographic special, effect, whatever that we did, we still discovered swans, and they were all white. 5,000 extra. So 10,000 birds that were observed were all white. That strengthens our hypothesis. It means we have more evidence. And where is it touches? It's touching what the size of the sample has enlarged. The more of the sample that represent the population supports the hypothesis, the higher the probability of the hypothesis. Okay, let's look at the B. B says, still we are checking to see whether we'll strengthen our hypothesis, weaken it, or it will have no effect. If the sample, the original sample of 5,000 swans observed in North America and Europe, if we were to adjust it, if it changed to this, would it strengthen or weaken our hypothesis? It says, suppose only female swans had been observed. Suppose only female, take it that it was only female swans that had been observed. If we get this information, would that weaken our sample, our hypothesis, or strengthen it? Keep your hand up, please, if you want to try. Now, go ahead. Now, day 30.
Please, it will weaken the hypothesis.
Why? That's correct, but why? And end yourself a man.
Because maybe the male swans have a different color.
Very good. So that's very correct. So if you want to speak the language of the terms that we have used so far, which of the qualities we have studied has been affected? Someone else do that so you can get a mark too. Now is correct. It will weaken the hypothesis because what? Joseph, Asma. Where is the rest of the class? Where are you people? I'm seeing the same hands. All the hands up have spoken and they've earned marks. I don't want to give the marks to only them. Joseph, go ahead. Free, go ahead. I see Kelvin, I see Rafik, I see Kamte. They've spoken already. Joseph, are you trying to answer my question?
Hello. Hello.
Go ahead, Joseph.
Please, representative. It will affect the representation of the males.
Okay, so we say that the sample's representation has been restricted. In other words,
yes,
the
please.
Sample has become biased. Well done, Joseph.
Yes, please.
These are practical questions. Okay, so you guys should kindly keep it locked there. There's the C one. C says, suppose all the observations were made only during the dry season and Harmattan months in Western Africa. Suppose all the observations were made only during the dry season and Harmattan months in Western Africa. Would it strengthen, weaken, or have no effect? Oh, their hands up there. The same hands. If here, if free, Talk, Auntie. Joseph Ajiman.
Yes, madam.
Go ahead.
Please, it will have no effect.
Okay, that is Joseph's response. Let's critique it together. Does someone think otherwise? I see hands up, so I want to give up opportunity. Charlene, what do you think? Amesa, what do you think? Hey, where are my ladies? I'm marking you absent. Oh.
Madam.
Talk, I'm listening.
Madam, it's a weakness.
Why? It's correct, but why? Amesa, why? Why will it weaken?
Madam, wait. I can't hear.
I want to know why you say to weaken it. If the observations were made only during the dry season in Hamatan month in Western Africa. You say it will weaken it. I said that's fine. But what is your reason for saying that? I don't want betting lottery kind of answer. You see that? That's what I'm asking. Why do you say that?
Because it was observed only during the dry season.
So what has gone wrong? We have used the 4 qualities. I want you to connect it to the. Which of them has been affected? Okay, let's take. Oh, it has nothing to do with completeness. Let's take a. Thank you, though. Essential. But the answer is correct. It has weakened it. Essential, go ahead.
Madam, the reason why it has weakened it is that it has affected the sufficiency in size.
That's one. Very good.
Yes. And
we can add more. Someone else. Let's take Rafik now. Rafik is tired of raising his hand. I'm not my name. Go on.
I was going to say the same thing.
But there's still something else to say. Very good. You see, it says suppose all the observations, so still the 5,000, okay, were made only during the dry season and Hamatan months in Western Africa. Perhaps that is why Our Lady said completeness. Some relevant information that should come in was not given to us. But this adjustment will expose that information. Okay. And so my lady Amesa was right. The most important adjustment that has been made here is what? Information that is relevant, that is useful. I should say that is useful, has been given to us to help us make a good analysis of what went on. Okay. The sufficiency in size, though, may not come in for C. Why? Essentially, C. Why? Because they said suppose all the observations were made. So it's the same observations of 5,000 beds. Nothing has changed in the size. But then they are telling us that if it turned out that these observations that we made were done in just West Africa, not even Africa, the west of Africa, and at a specific time of the year, Harmattan and dry season, you know that birds migrate. When the weather is hot, they can move to another place. You see that at certain times there will be a lot of birds, insects, what have you. But at other times you won't see them because they look for, if you like, greener pastures. That is a relevant, very useful information that will help the completeness of our research. Amesa was very right. Thank you to Essential for addition. Let's do the next one. Suppose the 5,000 swans were observed in Africa and Asia, as well as North America and Europe. Africa, Asia, North America, and Europe. There are still 5,000, but in Africa, Asia, as well as North America and Europe. What would happen? I want all hands up. If you have not answered the question, you have not earned any participation mark. I don't know what the issue will be. All right. So let me hear you. All right. Prince, you've spoken already today. Where are the ladies? Well, I'm coming. Let me trace them. My ladies, where are you? Isabella. Isabella,
Madam.
respond to that one. Respond to that one. But you are there, you won't talk. Auntie Ivana. I have to talk. Oh. Kekeli, where are you all? Francisca and Alia.
Madam, I'm here.
Kendra, Kenneth, where are you all? Okay, let me hear you, Isabella. Suppose the 5,000 swans were observed in Africa and Asia, as well as North America and Europe. Would it strengthen the hypothesis, weaken it, or have no effect? Isabella. Okay, Kenneth. You and Priscilla and Stephanie are using the same gadget. Go ahead.
Please, I think it will strengthen it.
Why? That's correct, but why?
Because it involves all the continents.
Use the four qualities. Use the four qualities. What do you say?
It involves relevance, efficiency, completeness, and representation.
This is Adjoa. Relevance and come.
Okay.
Kekeli, help your friend. I said, suppose that the 5,000 swans were observed in Africa and Asia, as well as North America and Europe. Which of the four qualities we've engaged a moment ago would have been improved? It's correct that it will strengthen the hypothesis, but which of them is affected positively?
Madam, please, I need to think about it very well.
You want to think about it? Okay, that's fine. Lionel. Lionel, are you there?
Yes, please.
Go ahead. What do you think? Originally, the research was done in North America and Europe only. We are saying that what if we find out that what if the research wasn't done only in North America and Europe, but also it was done in Africa and Asia, as well as North America and Europe. Now we have 4 continents and not just 2.
Madam, the complete.
The what?
Completeness.
No, this is not completeness. But thank you for the feedback. It's not completeness. Ivana.
Please, I think it will strengthen it.
Yeah, that one we agree. Why? Why do we say our hypothesis will be strengthened? Which of our qualities has been affected? Positive.
Safety inside.
Which one?
Sufficiency in size.
But the size hasn't changed. They said suppose all the observations, suppose the 5,000 swans were observed. So it's still 5,000. So the size hasn't changed. Can you see that? Rosalisa. So think around it. Rosalisa. Rosa, are you there? Okay, let me take the gentleman then. They have 6 hands up. They are getting stressed out. It's me.
It's a hand is up.
I've not seen. Which hand is up now?
Please, Kendra.
Kendra, go ahead.
Auntie, please.
Representation.
Yes, that is what representation is. What has been positively affected. Our sample size now captures a wider spread. It is no longer two. You see, the representation or unbiasedness is saying that make sure you have the various parts. So if it is the one student we're interviewing, we want to make sure we have some Volta Hall students amongst them, some Commonwealth High, Mesa Saba Hall, the private hostels around that are all affiliated to the school, the residents, non-residents, rich adults, poor adult students, teenagers that want to be on their own for the first time, so they don't want petty. You know, you have to think through and cover the various representations. Now, the bird scenario, we are talking about all birds. We are saying all swans, really, in the whole world. So if your research, which helped you arrive at the conclusion that all swans are white, if the research was done initially in only 2 continents, then we review the sample and say that, oh, now take it that we didn't do it in 2 continents, but we did it in 4 continents. And in all those 4 continents, the swans we observed turned out to be white. It will strengthen the hypothesis because now you are not just dealing with one small, tiny continent, but dealing with 4 different ones with different temperatures, different, one in the temperate zone, one in the tropical one. You see that? And yet, all those places you found white swan. It's a stronger argument. If the vaccine worked on white-skinned people, dark-skinned, Indian skin, whatever that means, Caucasian, Chinese, and the vaccine is working on all of them, those in the temperate zone, those in the tropical, then the efficacy of that vaccine or that injection is higher because what? It has a wider spread. It's representative, it's unbiased. Not fixed to only a specific out of the population. You want to speak about all human beings and how the vaccine will work, then Caucasian are as human as blacks, and blacks are as human as whites, whites are as human as green, whichever skin people have. They are all human. So the statement you are going to make is about humans, then you want to make sure they are all covered. Humans in Africa, humans in North America, humans in Europe, whatever. That is what is happening here with the bird scenario. So the swans, if they were observed in 4 different continents, then it gives us a higher degree of probability what we have found out. That what all swans are white. Well done. Now, last but one question, still on that. So this could have been a section B question, just on sampling, maybe 15 marks. Then unit 6, 15 marks. Then unit 7 and 9, 15 marks. Then unit 10, 15 marks. And that's all. Your final exam will not be asking you interrogative. You know, it will do practical. So these units we are dealing with are those that will come. And they will come maybe 5 questions, but in that way, so that you can, and if you were asked to do this, it's just a diagnosis of your ability to test the quality of your sample. And you can do it. Just give it a little more attention. Suppose all the observations were made only on Saturday and Sunday. Hey, maybe the Sunday church people were making too much noise, so the blackbirds flew away and left the white. Yeah. Well, I don't think that should have any effect on the hypothesis. Whether it was Sunday or Saturday shouldn't matter. I don't know what you think. So this one shouldn't have any effect. And suppose only swans under 2 months old were observed. If it turns out that those 5,000 swans that we had observed were all under 2 months old. In other words, they were baby swans. And that is how come, and then our conclusion is they are all white. What will happen? What would it strengthen or weaken our sample? If it turns out that we had only 2 months old swans, really. Okay, yeah. Noel, give us your, hey, Yusra, are you there? Yusra. Noel, give us your feedback. Suppose they were only baby swans, 2 months old, baby swans that were observed, and they were all white. Noel, are you there? Frank, go ahead.
Madam, please, I'm here.
Go ahead.
Madam, I think sufficiency.
I can't hear you. I'm saying that will it strengthen or weaken it? Olu, are you there?
Madam, I think it will weaken.
Why?
Because
explain first, then we'll connect it to the main. Please just answer. Don't let your friends be telling you. It won't help you. Or go ahead. Go ahead.
Because they use 2 days.
They use what?
Only 2 days to make the
Were you with us all the time?
Yes, madam.
It's up to you. Yusra. Thank you, Noel. Yusra, go ahead. Suppose only swans under 2 months old were observed. Suppose only swans under 2 months old were observed. Will it strengthen the hypothesis or weaken it?
Madam, I think it will weaken it.
That's correct, but why? This is why.
Madam, but the baby swans are white. So.
So yes, I get you. So if the babies are white, why does it weaken our hypothesis that all swans are white? Olua. Yes.
I think we can do because the representatives have all the components of. Sorry, the representativeness is expected. Sorry.
Okay. I think that relevant information there helps us. That is information that helps our sample. Because even chicken, our chicks at home, when the eggs hatch, the kind of color we see of our chicks, as they grow, their actual feathers come out. So maybe originally they look yellowish, and before they start becoming fully grown chicken, you see their actual feathers. They will be white, they will be black, they will be. But when they are babies, they are now growing feathers. So their color proper may not have come out. So this is an important information, completeness of the sample, like some of you had said earlier. Information, or if you like better still, what's the other one? Relevance and completeness. This is more completeness, information about the sample that helps us to review. The baby birds may grow and get a different color of feather. So if they were babies and you found them all to be white, and therefore you conclude that all swans are white, they may just grow up shortly in some months, weeks perhaps, and have different colors. So that weakens what we thought we knew. And on that note, we can move on to the next slide. What did we do? We looked at a practical application of what? The qualities we saw. If you were following what Rafik read, and then what Kelvin came to continue for us, they were the qualities that a good sample must have in order to make it a viable option to increase the probability of what? Our sample being true. Thank you so much. I need someone to read what is on the screen for me. And for that, I will call Kekeli.
Inductive arguments based on analogy.
Good.
Similarity in comparison.
The word analogy is what we have explained to make your life easier. When there is similarity in two events, it's a straightforward thing, then we'll be done and be preparing for the final topics. Not the final one, but one. Go on, please.
Simply An argument based on analogy depends on the common features of two objects or events to draw a conclusion about another feature not common to the two.
Example.
Objects of type A have properties P, Q, R, S. Objects of type B have properties P, Q, R, S, T. Therefore, by analogy, we can conclude that type A will likely have property P also. Notice again that this conclusion is not a deduction or proof. It is only a matter of induction or probability.
Very good and well read. That is how mostly empirical science operates. Because human beings and rats have some things in common, some relevant common features. Okay, we may have the same, we may share the quality P together and Q together and R together and S together. When you find another property T with humans or with animals, we say that, oh, if they share all these relevant features, P, Q, R, and S in common, then the other one that we see with type B, which A doesn't have yet, we have good reason to believe that it would also be like A, like B. That is what? Comparison, analogy. You compare two events to help you arrive at a possible likely other property that they share. Don't forget it. Your textbook has quite a lot of examples there for you. If you had yours, then I would have asked you to look at one. But let me see if I can get some examples for you in the text. So here are some examples. You are asked to diagnose and detect false analogies and then good recognizing argument based on analogy. Let me read one or two. 80% of the patients with cirrhosis of the liver who died in the last 5 years at Kolebu Hospital were heavy drinkers. So 80% of the fatal cases of liver cirrhosis are caused by heavy drinking. We compare the two and we draw a conclusion. Look at the first one. That one is not a issue. Let's capture one that is straightforwardly based on what? Analogy. The one I read is more of an enumerative induction. They put all together for you to identify which is based on analogy, which is inductive reasoning, which is a causal reasoning, and so on. And this is possible, just like you did with in your IE. I could give several and ask you to diagnose what is wrong with it or what type of induction is in that particular passage and why, and correct it and blah, 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 okay? So all the animals we saw in the Accra Zoo were well cared for. The buildings were renovated in the 1980s. The government has been subsidizing the zoo. They have collected money from Worldwide Wildlife. That was the Accra Zoo I enumerated. I'll take it again, the first part of the passage. All the animals we saw in the Accra Zoo were well cared for. The buildings were renovated in the 1980s. The government has been subsidizing the zoo. That's the second point. They have collected money from Worldwide Wildlife. Now, the second part of the passage says the Kumasi Zoo has also received government money to refurbish its buildings, and the Worldwide Wildlife Fund also provided money for its upkeep. Hence, take note, we can conclude that all the animals in the Kumasi Zoo are also well cared for. This is an argument based on analogy. What the two scenarios share in common, what the Accra Zoo and Kumasi Zoo share in common is that they all receive government support, they all receive support from wildlife. But one, the Accra Zoo has animals that are well cared for. And so the person arguing says, if they all receive government support, their buildings are refurbished, and they all receive wildlife support, then if Accra Zoo animals are well cared for, I have good reason to draw a likely conclusion that then Kumasi Zoo, the animals there will also be well cared for. But you know that that may not be the case. So we have said that already. Such a conclusion that I'm drawing is based on analogy. I'm doing a comparison of the two And I'm saying that since they share these relevant, very important common features, then the other feature I see with one of them, which the other one doesn't have, I can attribute it to that other person. And that is why we call that analogy. Any questions on analogy, please? If not, we are so done with it. These are very easy. So even on main campus, we didn't do it because it's too easy. They are very straightforward. They are not anything complex. If you got it and you can easily detect an analogy, let's go quickly then to a few slides left. They are all types of induction, like the way we learned the types of deduction: modus ponens, modus tollens, hypothetical syllogism, and disjunctive syllogism. These are also argument based on sampling, based on analogy, based on causal reasoning, and enumerative induction. We've done enumerative induction. We walked through sampling. We have just finished analogy, and we'll top it up with causal reasoning and end. Let me have a good reader again to read what you see on the screen. Argument of cause and effect. 7 hands up. Who do I call? Let me take Daniel. Daniel Mame. Is Daniel Mame? I've been looking for Lois. Let me take my class rep. Lois, please read for me. I've been looking for you. I just don't want to mention me when you ask. I hope you are doing well. Please read for me.
Yeah, right.
I'm fine.
Great. Go ahead.
It is commonplace to see the cause or causes of things. COVID-19, change, flooding, destroyed relationship, decline in spirituality, sour friendship, etc. Again, causal, not causal. Arguments are also inductive, a matter of probability, not proof or certainty.
Very good. So I just wanted to stress the point that the word is causal, not casual. So one is CASU, but we are referring to CAU. So from the word cause, the cause of something, cause and effect based reasoning. Okay. And it's commonplace. I mean, we are always trying to diagnose what could possibly have been the cause of something, what brought it about. COVID-19, some diagnose as a spiritual thing that God has brought to curb all of us and put us on back to the right path. Something that it is whatever creation by China, all those funny things that not funny, well, people's perceptions about what the cause of something is. Someone just cannot understand why she has never had a consistent relationship for a year. The guys keep going. Another is saying the ladies don't stay. Well, what could be the cause? So the notion of cause is, why is it I can't get admission into this program? I have tried and tried and tried. Some don't understand. Why are we not getting jobs to do? What is causing it? The cause. Now, when we reason causally, we are making a certain assumption about what the meaning of cause is all the time. So we are going to look at some connotations of the word cause. When we say what caused it, sometimes we mean cause as X, sometimes we mean cause as Y, sometimes we mean cause as Z, and so on and so forth. So on the screen now we have different connotations of the word cause. Thank you, Lois. Let me take Frank. Frank, are you there? Kindly read the different connotations of the word cause for me if you're able to. If Frank is not able to, I would quickly take Charlene, can you read, please?
Yes, please.
Go ahead. Thank you, Lois. Go ahead.
Different connotations of the word cause.
Please go on. Charlene, I'm muted.
Yeah. Cause as proximate, nearest to the effect. Agent, person or entity with intention. Necessary condition. Must be present for the effect to occur. Insufficient condition. If present, then effect. But other conditions can yield that effect. And individually necessary. Jointly sufficient condition.
From the word probability. Probabilistic cause. It's from the word probability.
Yes, like
Yeah.
no. So far as we are dealing with
So far as we are.
no effect can make only one single cause.
Okay, so far as we are dealing with empirical evidence, that is factual matter, no effect can be as a result of only one single cause. There will always be a chain of antecedent causes. The cause for the slap that the brother gave the sister could come all the way from what he ate in the morning, how he was groomed, what kind of, truck, the bus he sat in, what kind of encounter he had there. Then it can be a series of antecedent, causes. So we do not want to suggest that whenever something happens, it was as a result of a single cause. For people to get a good grade, if you think that it is all about they are studying hard, it's a joke. They must have good health. They must have peace of mind at home. I mean, if you were a Ukrainian or a Russian in these times, how much of focus can you have with anything? Living in Russia or living in Ukraine at this time of the year. Even if you are taking a blow, one morsel of food, and you hear boom, you drop it, yeah, you'll be scared, you see. So the student that is learning there, for her to pass and pass well at this time, there are a lot of antecedent conditions that will come together to generate the course. You should write well, you should think well, you should rest well so that you can pass an exam. They are all part of it. Okay. So we want to put that down immediately so that people don't think that courses are attributable to one single antecedent condition. But then let's explain the various connotations of the word course on the screen, and we will be so done. Course as proximity. Look at the word approximately, nearest in me. Okay. So when we say what caused it, sometimes what we really mean is what was the most immediate condition that prevailed before the effect. If you were a doctor and the people come to you and they are saying that, oh, we just went to a party, we had lunch, and our friend was just saying, oh, my stomach, my stomach, my stomach. So we rushed him to the hospital. The most immediate cause, when we say cause, we could be asked, what was the immediate thing that she ate before coming? As soon as Lois entered the lecture hall, then the light went off. You could get someone saying that, oh, it was Lois that caused the light off, as if she has electricity in her system. But the proximity, so some may be talking cause and all they mean is what was the most immediate event that occurred before the effect has come. So that's proximate cause. Then sometimes when we say the cause of something, we mean the agent, the human being or the institution that instituted or that. I may be looking for the person that sanctioned the sack or the human being that initiated or engineered it. I'm not talking at that instance, I'm not talking about the most immediate event that happened before something necessarily. I'm looking for the agent. Or if they say University of Ghana has sacked Asimesi Obintin or has reopened school or has closed down school because of the UTAG strike, University of Ghana has closed down. So you think about it. It is an agent, an institution, an acting body, entity, okay, that has acted. So we think of that as agental cause. Now look at, sometimes when we say cause, we are thinking about that necessary condition that must be present. Look at necessary, must be present for the effect to occur. If Ghana wanted to qualify to the World Cup, then the team had to make sure the ball entered the net, a goal. It's not a dribbling. You could dribble for all you care. If someone plays the most unfriendly West soccer, but make sure that the essence, the necessary thing is done, put the ball into the net, the back of the net. and make sure it doesn't get into yours. That is what matters. We don't care how you played. In football, to win, to score a goal, let me say that to score a goal is to ensure that the ball hits the net of your opponent, not your own net. If you play it to your own net is called an own goal. You will not win that match. Okay, so it is necessary, a condition that must be there before an effect will come. Is what we mean by necessary cause. So for you to have for plants to whatever prepare their food, photosynthesis, okay, it is necessary that there must be what? Sunlight, water, and chlorophyll. These are necessary. They are needed. Without it, we can't have photosynthesis. Without the ball entering the back of the net, we can't have a goal in some such. Okay, so they are necessary conditions. Then, when we talk of cause, another connotation, another meaning we can give to cause is what? Sufficient condition. That is where there is technicality. Both necessary and sufficient are technical terms. Sufficient condition means, or sufficient cause means that if that condition is there, the effect will come. It will bring about the effect. However, without that condition, some other condition can bring about what? The effect. So the presence of that condition is sufficient, is enough to bring about the effect. It doesn't mean that without it, the effect cannot come. The effect can still come from other sources. Let's give an example. Heart attack. You are the medical folks there. Heart attack, or give me the proper labeling for it. But the heart getting sick, so heart attack or BP, blood pressure, whatever, is caused by eating so much salt, I think. Now that expression will be what? The salt eating will be sufficient to bring about the BP, high blood pressure. Eating the salt can give you high blood pressure, maybe. But it is not the only factor that can lead to that. When I give you, or should I use heart attack? I want something that is very easy, not too technical. But when I give you bad news too, I don't regulate how I'm presenting the news to you. I just come and tell you, oh, Asimisi is dead. I can let you get pressure, blood pressure, instantly. It will shoot up. You see, so maybe eating too much salt, excessive salt, is sufficient for getting heart attack. It doesn't mean it is necessary for it. Necessity means without that condition, the effect cannot come. That's necessary condition. But sufficiency means it is one of the conditions that will bring about the effect. However, without that condition, some other condition can bring about the effect. I will ask you that question. So it took me a lot of time to explain. That's why I put there. If present, then the effect will come. But other conditions can still yield that effect. So it means that that condition was only one, a sufficient condition for the effect. Then when you have individually necessary, but all put together become sufficient, we think of that kind of cause as what? Which example can I give? Think about it, there's quite a number in the textbook. On their own, one, they are all necessary. When you put them all together, they become enough grounds to bring about the effect. That is what it means. And probabilistic cause, look at the name, probability. I can say what caused it. And sometimes I'm not really even talking about whether it actually brought about it, but it is probably that, probably because of the food he ate. So I would say, what caused it? And I'm not speaking like a researcher or a lab technician who has done in the lab. I'm just saying that maybe the skin rash he has is because of the snail that was in the food. Because there was snail in that food. I am just asking for what, or I'm just pointing to what a probable cause. Excellent. Take note of those connotations. Are you able to absorb something small in addition, or you are so tired we end? Let me know. Read through it. If we have to go over some of them when we meet again, we'll be fine. We'll do a marathon when we meet online. I want to create a Google Classroom for us where we can do a marathon. But that can be for another day. Let's take questions if you have any, please. Or if you want to read, you can also read what is left for us. So you complete a set of slides, then the rest will be for you to do your readings on it. quite a lot of things to learn, but then the exam will focus on few. I've told you already, so that it will help your reading. All the units 1, 2, 3, the ones we've done in the past, modus ponens and the folks, we have used that to cover our interim assessment. The second half content we are doing are those that you should expect in the exam, so that you have a relatively less, vague focus. Okay. So unit 7, what we did, what we are doing now, argument based on sampling, analogy, causal reasoning, J.S. Mills's methods, of course, fallacies, the few that we are doing now are those you will expect in the exam. You won't be doing interrogative, connotation, denotation, those ones we have concluded on that. Let me take Thelma. You have a good background, then kindly read for me. Oh no, Thelma, hold on. I've not called Kendra. So Kendra, I can go ahead. Ira has spoken. Let's take Kendra. Kendra, read what you see now. Let's use that. We'll just read through and then.
Yes, please.
Yes.
J.S. Mill's method of causal reasoning. To improve our explanation of the possible causes of an effect,
We have lost you, my dear Kendra. We have lost Kendra. Who is able to read for us, please? Lionel, can you read? Lionel, can you read, please? Lionel, are you able to read? If not, then let me take okay.
Hello, madam.
Yes, auntie. Yes, madam.
Please,
go ahead.
To improve our explanation. To improve our explanation of the possible of an effect, J.S. Mill proposes 4 methods of causal reasoning. These are inductive, not deductive. 1. Method of agreement. That is, if in series of tests, wherever the suspected area is present, the effect is also present.
So let me give an example. Hold on. So J.S. Mill says, if we want to diagnose the possible cause of an effect, and this is your area as medical folks, this is a typical area that you can't overlook. They rush the patient to your consulting room, emergency. They come and the patient is going. If you don't do something about it, she's dying. So there and then you have to quickly diagnose what the possible cause of that situation she's in is. So she comes, she's holding the tummy. Ask what happened? What is it? I need to know. So before they're running laps and whatever. What happened? Say, oh, we went to the party. Before you finish talking, another person also comes in. Yeah, she's also holding her tummy. I'll show you samples, examples shortly. Method of agreement that our lady has mentioned. Let me see if I have something on the slides for that. Oh, not yet. Okay, then let's just do. I'll explain them by word of mouth. Then when you look at your text, you get more examples. I'm showing you that when the method agrees. Now, just when you are asking the lady what happened to you, she starts talking, the people are talking on her behalf, holding her tummy, and they are running laps for her. Another person is brought in, also from that same party, holding the tummy. You see? Then they ask, what happened? Then you say, oh, we all went to the party. I took rice, fish, pepper, and a little salad. This is the other lady whose tummy is paining her. So the first lady comes, she has stomach pains. The other person brought in also has stomach pains. I took rice, pepper, whatever, fish, and some salad. And my tummy. Just before we finish with our diagnosis, the other person says, I took banku and shito and chicken. But I also asked for a spoon of salad on my table, vegetables with some sprinkling of cream on it. Just a dash, not so much, just like the other lady. Then the other people also there, but they took the same Banku watch. I'm showing you the method of agreement that can quickly, according to J.S. Mill, help you do a diagnosis of the possible cause of the running, the stomach ache. Okay, so two instances wherever there was salad, people were running. Those who didn't take the salad are not running. So let's say there were 4 of us at the time. I'm trying to use several examples for each. 4 of us eating at the table. What is the method of agreement? When I took salad, I'm running. Those who didn't take salad, they didn't run. We ate the same set of meals, but I topped it with what? Salad. They didn't take the salad. And then when we finish, I am running, they are not running. You say the method of agreement, wherever salad appeared, the running or the stomach pain also appeared. So it agrees. That's the method of agreement. It's a common thread. It is running through. Okay, that's the method of agreement. So then you say then the possible cause of the stomach ache is the salad because they all took the jollof together. But Nancy added a little dash of vegetables with the cream on it. The others didn't. Even those who wanted the cream, said, oh, we don't want again. They stopped. And so they are not running, but she's running. It could be that it's not the salad. It could be that I'm already going through some cramps in my time. That is what is causing the pain. But we will suspend the salad because that's the only difference. Excuse me. That's the only thing that I added, which is causing what? The running. All right. My sister, read the second one. The method of difference.
Method of difference. That is, if in a series of tests, the effect occurred only where the suspected cause is present.
It's straightforward. Read the next one.
3. Joint method of agreement is where you compare the agreeing set with the differing set, and that still points to the
suspected cause, yes. So the joint method of agreement and difference is stronger. Method of difference, those who I took it are running. Kendra didn't take, she's not running. So then we will suspect the running, what I took as the cause, okay? But the earlier one, we all ate the same thing. So we have to expect that we all run. But the only exceptional thing I added is leading to what? An exceptional effect that the others don't have. So there's a common thread. It agrees. That's the first. So the other one, it differs. That is the method. And then the joint method of agreement and difference. We put the two. Then there is what is on the screen, what we call concomitant variation. I want to end with that one. So let me sum up. What we call the method of concomitant variation is big word, nothing much. Concomitant, a variation that agrees with the other. So it is varying. You know, that happens when, for example, let me give you an example. Let's say you see a rash on the person's skin. And they come to your office, tell, oh, my daughter, oh, she went to school, when she came, look at all this rash on her skin. And say, since when? Say, oh, this morning. In the morning when she was leaving, it wasn't so. But this afternoon, it came big. Rash just on the arm. What did she eat? That's what you do first. You don't go diagnosing. No. Look at the probable cause, probability. Try to diagnose before you even start giving prescription, because there might be something that in your interrogation will come out. Okay. So you ask, and then so she just took a regular meal, but she says her friend brought some nice fried rice with a lot of vegetables in it. I think there was a mushroom in it as well, which is something she doesn't often eat. So we don't know if she's reacting to that. Okay, since we can't be sure if it is that mushroom, let them go and order that same fried rice. This is the method we are talking about. Let them order this time. Let them get more of the mushrooms. So if they took just a spoon of mushrooms in the vegetables area, this time let them give us 4 spoons of the mushroom and let our girl eat it. It's not poisonous. We just want to see the effect on her skin. So we give that, and then lo and behold, by morning, the rash is not only on the left arm, it's on the whole body, on her other arm, and now her ears are even sticking out, the rash. Then you can say that, ooh, well, we suspect what a mushroom. But even to make it stronger, now if we took 1 spoon the last time and we have extended it to 3 spoons, now let's just take a tiny little spoon of it. Let's see if it will reduce. You take it and it reduces. The rashes are now only on the fingers. Then we have good reason, inductively speaking, to believe that so the cause of the rash, the probable cause of the rash is what? The mushroom. What did we do? We did a concomitant variation. We varied it. So the person ate some more pepper, and then now the ulcer pain is so high. They say, no, she's reacting to the pepper. Okay, let's bring it down and see. We bring it down and the thing comes down. Vice versa. Then we have detected the possible causes. So it is a method that is not counterintuitive at all. That's how we think, really. We don't need any logician to tell us that. But it has just been codified to help you have ways of diagnosing the possible causes of effect, especially in the scientific enterprise. That is J.S. Mills's method of concomitant variation. Up here are the method of agreement, the method of difference, then the joint method of agreement and difference. Earlier, we looked at the various connotations of the word cause. When we say he cause the various thoughts we may have in mind. And then look up here, we had already looked at another form of inductive reasoning, which is called the method of what? Analogy, where you compare 2 events because they share some things in common. You presume then that the extra property that one has, which you haven't yet seen in the other, you can assume that then the other one would also have that same property. We had already before then looked at some qualities that a good sample should have: completeness, relevance, sufficiency, and representativeness. And as a result of understanding what sampling, the method of sampling is. And then, voila. Any questions, friends? Okay. If there are no questions, I see Ryan Kendrick's hand. I suspect they are for the readings, unless there are questions. If there are questions, then a person can unmute and ask. But if there are no questions, then we are good to go. If I'm able to do my Google Classroom setup, then we'll try our hands on some of the possible questions I will ask. If you are able to use the PDF, then you can do an individual submission. But I think that you already have so much to engage. So let me leave you. We can do it later. Right? It's an assignment I will give to you as a group to do sometime later. Let us have a restful week till next week. Iran Kendra, is there a question? There are hands up there.
No, please. Sorry.
All right, then we are so done. We did our full time. Thank you for coming, all of you. I ask that you keep studying. The quest is to make you do well and then pass well, and be confident that you did your own passing, not that you were helped or someone had to favor you, not at all. And you can do it. So I want to encourage you to keep studying until the semester hopefully comes to an end. I don't think that we have to do any full-time assessments again till the final. Anything we'll do will just be a regular, way of getting feedbacks and then giving you alternative ways of proving yourself. Thank you. I'll record this. It's already recorded. I'll pull it down and then hopefully send you the link. And then you can play it back as part of your revision content. All the best and take care.